Right. Okay. Well, I've sort of dug into the depths of my drawers today, and I've pulled out some training notes from God, about 20 years ago. But my first initial introduction to networking was with a lady she was from Cincinnati in the States, in Ohio, a lady called Paula Pritchard, and she was a tremendous mentor for me. And you can even Google Paula Pritchard. She taught me a lot, and I'm just going to go through some of the notes that I wrote from way back then, because my belief is that this business is all about relationships. You know, it's in those 20 years ago, it was all it was all very manual and on paper, and there was no internet or anything like that. But I know the business is high tech now, but I honestly still believe that it's very much high touch still, because long-term relationships is what's going to build a massive business for you over the next 5 years. So she talked about something called CSE, and that stands for Contact, Share, and Enroll. And contact, share, and enrolling is the key. Contact, share, and enroll are the three basic steps to building a business. And before I discuss each of these, you'll want to make a commitment to focus on money-making activities. And money-making activities, there's basically two activities that pay you income in this business. And one is contacting people and sharing our services, and the other is contacting people and sharing the business. And then, as she always said, you double your chances of, I suppose, making a sale. If they don't want to get in the business, they can always become a customer. So that made a lot of sense to me. So basically, in contacting, in the traditional business world that we're all involved in, we talk about the need, for capital to start a business and expand your business. And nowadays, to start your own business takes a lot of money, and especially the way the banks are, that money just isn't there. In the industry that we're involved in networking, to expand your business, while we do need a bit of money, not a great deal for the returns, but you need a different type of capital, and you need people to become customers and people to join your organization, your business. So, when you look at it, there are two groups of people, that we can choose from. Those that we know, that's called your warm market, and those that you'll meet for the first time, and that's called the cold market. And then there's the what they call the lukewarm market, which is those that are in between. So if you have a good quality, large, warm market that you're willing to talk to about, our services and our business, it's best to begin there. And that makes a lot of sense, because, you can practice what you say to them, and if you goof up, it doesn't matter if they're friends. And why warm market is best to start with is quite simply because, your warm market is more receptive to you. You've got credibility. So, our advice is always, start making your list and approaching a warm market. So this is especially true if you have credibility with them. When you work with, your cold market, I wouldn't advise anybody to go out there, placing adverts in papers or anything like that. It's very expensive, and it's hard work. But if you did do that, you'd have to establish credibility, and that takes extra time, and it also takes a lot of money. Money that you can spend is phenomenal in advertising, or buying lists, or going on trade shows. So I want to focus on warm market, and I'll talk to you about how to turn, also not necessarily tonight, how to turn people you meet in everyday life, turn them into your warm market as well. So there are a few reasons why people, hesitate to contact the warm market. One is that they have contacted them in the past and that particular business didn't work out the way they wanted to, and they're, you could be embarrassed to go back with a new, better business. If you have people in your warm market that fit, this category, you can simply go back to them and be quite honest. You can always say something like, I know we were both disappointed with such and such a company, but I don't know about you, I'm not ready to give up on my dreams. I want to build a pension, and if you feel the same way, I found what I think is the perfect answer. Another common reason that people are unwilling to contact the warm market is because they lack belief in this industry itself. And if that's the case, then my advice is you need to work on that. Talk to successful people in the business and buy some books. There's some phenomenal books out there. A very good website to purchase some really good material from is if you Google "knowledge is king," I'm not sure whether it's .com, I think it's .com, but it might be .co.uk. Knowledge is king. There are some phenomenal books there on networking and on personal development. So now we want to make a list. This is the first thing that we want to do, and making your list, people don't realize just how powerful your list is, because there's a very good book. I'd advise you to buy it because it is worth its weight in gold, and it's called Endless Referrals, and it's written by a gentleman called Bob Burg. That's B-U-R-G. And in that book, Bob Burg shows you how, literally, just to get referrals after referrals after referrals, and people are literally chucking referrals at you. And he states that the average person out there knows at least 2,000 people. If you sat down for a day, you would be absolutely amazed how big your list, your warm market list would be. People that you know by name or nickname, or people that you've come across in the past. But in making a list, do not undermine this at all. Do not make it a half-hour exercise and then that's your list done for your business. Someone once, I remember Paula, in fact, said to me, she said that if you don't build your list, but not only just that, but do it on a daily basis, every day, just keep adding names to the list that you come across, you will not be in this business in 12 months' time. Now that's quite a profound statement, but it's just so true. So when I talk about getting a sheet of A4 paper, my advice really is don't get a sheet of paper. Go and invest a couple of pounds. If you go to these pound shops, you can get some A4 hardback books, and that is one of the best investments you can make in your business. A permanent book that you will start making your list of names of people that you know, and it's permanent. You'll still have it in 10 years' time, and that's the best advice that I was ever given. So invest in that hard book and start making your list. So we want you to take that A4 sheet of paper. You need to make it a proper list, so you want to get a ruler and put columns in there. Obviously you want name, telephone number or mobile number, email address, and also a column called hot button. In other words, what is a hot button? A hot button is something that somebody wants, something that turns that person on, something that they want so desperately that you can always keep referring to it to motivate that person. I mean, one of my hot buttons is in 5-6 years time, I would like to be spending 6 months of my time abroad working, which you can do with this business, working abroad, Turkey or wherever, something like that, and 6 months in this country. So that's my hot button, or one of my hot buttons. So you need to do that, and all you simply do is, you just want to, you want to make it at least a 2-hour exercise initially, somewhere that's really quiet, and start emptying your brain onto that sheet. You need to forget about the business just for a few minutes, and you just list everyone you've known from the time, when you're a youngster. Every job that you've had, people that you interacted with, everywhere that you've lived, your neighbours, right up to every business or organisation that you belong to. Every person that has ever sold you anything, because if they've sold you something, if you do business with them, then guess what? They want to be doing business with you as well. And every person whose services you've used, everyone you've known from the very as far as your memory goes back. And as I said, you'll be adding to this list all the time. Get in the habit of carrying this hardback book with you all the time. You might want to make it an A5 hardback book, because that way it's a bit easier to carry around. That's up to you. But my advice is to take it with you, wherever you go. If you're driving along in the car somewhere, you know how it is when you're driving down the motorway. Your mind starts wandering, and all of a sudden, it's amazing. Names stop popping in your head. You start remembering 10 years back, such and such a person. Or you could literally drive down a road and you see the name of a street, and that triggers somebody's, reminds you of somebody that maybe lived on that street, or they got the same surname, and you can write them down. Another excellent piece of equipment to have, invest in it, is a handheld tape recorder. That's handy for one of these handheld ones. That's handy for having on your person all the time, because you'll just be amazed that the things or ideas and names that pop into your head, and you can either quickly jot them down, or you can put them on the tape recorder. Because believe me, 10 minutes later you can forget that name's popped into your head and it's popped out again. That's that's so true. Maybe you've met somebody at a party that you haven't seen for a while, or on a night out. Get their phone number, write it down. Always carry business cards with you. Always carry business cards with you. And if you do pop into somebody, you can give them your card, but also take their details on the back of one of those business cards, the name, the telephone number, the contact number, and put it in your wallet. So you need to be aware of, just every day you need to be adding names to the list, and it happens. Never prejudge. That's very important. You've just got to empty your brain and think of everybody because for those of you that have experienced in networking, you know the saying, it's not who you know, it's who they know and who they know. If you think of someone's name, write it down. The key is that you may not actually contact all of these people, but they may bring to mind people who you've forgotten. And this is how it works. You can think of John. You don't necessarily like John. You don't particularly want to work with John, but while you're writing his name down, you can think of Mary, and she was a great, bubbly person that would be ideal for this business. You may not have thought of Mary if you hadn't have written John's name down. So it's much easier to think of additional people and be creative when you're not trying to remember the whole list in your head. Plus, this exercise frees your brain and your memory banks, so it allows you to focus on, analysing and strategizing about your lists and your business. So the two biggest resources in this business. One is your list that you're going to still have in 10 years time, because it literally is worth a fortune. And the other thing that is the biggest resource in your business is your upline. So You know who brought you in the business, but you need to know who brought them in the business. You need their contact details, and you need to know who brought them in the business. You know, go 4 or 5 above yourself, get all the contact details. If they haven't rung you, then you need to ring them and introduce yourself, because you know they're all there to help you in the business. Another essential thing, while I remember it in the business, is to also set up 3-way calling with your phone provider. It's just such a valuable tool, and it's just such a marvelous way to start, you know, when you start speaking to people, is to use that third-person credibility. Someone that's probably been in the business, your sponsor, a bit longer than you, or somebody else. And it's all about testimony and stories. People love to hear stories of what's happening in the business, how they get started, and that's what's going to build your business. I won't go into what we do with the list from there. We can do that another night, because I realise that we are stuck on, you know, short on time. But just a couple of books that I found so handy, and I'd advise you to, you know, buy them. If you're in this business, you continually want to be learning. And one book is called Go for No, and that's by a gentleman called Richard Fenton, F-E-N-T-O-N. Go for No. It would. That book is marvelous. It's like once you've read that book, you will have a suit of armor around you that, you know, when people reject you and say no to you, which, you know, they will do, believe me, it's just like a, you know, bullet against armor. It just bounces off. It won't, you know, it just builds you so much strength for, you know, when you start working your list. And another marvelous book is called The Slight Edge, and that's by a gentleman called Jeff Olson, O-L-S-E-N, and that's Jeff with a J, J-E-F-F. And you can buy all those 3 books I've mentioned to you on Knowledge is King. Subscribe to their newsletter and become a good customer of them, because the material they have is absolutely priceless. But we'll go into how to build your list. At the moment, you know, I'm sure you could, between now and Thursday, you could put at least 100 names down. And what we'll show you to do at a later date is to categorize the list and how to start working your list. So I think I've been on, what, 15 minutes, Trevor?
It's fantastic, Ted. Thank you very much.
Right. Can you hear me? Yeah, I presume you can hear me all right. Okay. Right, okay, well, where are we now? Thursday. Yeah, Thursday. So on Monday I covered the basics of making your list, and how it's the biggest resource in your whole business, as well as your upline, just how precious it is. And it's the fundamental foundation to your business. You know, it's an essential. I ran through how you need to have a hardback A4 diary to start building your list. I also covered how you need a handheld tape recorder, how precious that is for recording those ideas and those names that suddenly pop into your head. We covered 3-way calling, how you need to get that set up. That is so essential. I covered 3 really good books that you need to buy and read, because, you know, this whole business is about learning. You know, if you're not prepared to learn about the business and the industry, then it's not going to work for you. You know, I'm being brutally honest here now, because I'm quite sure you want me to be. We know that there are some huge incomes coming out of this business, but you know, it's a bit like being an Olympic Christie or being a top athlete. You know, if you want to be a top earner, then you've got to apply and work this business on a consistent basis. So we're not going to cover attitude or belief or commitment or setting goals. They're all part of this business, but we can cover that another time. But what I will say, you know, it's all about learning about the business the industry, and people. Because at the end of the day, you know, we know that our product, but our real product is people in our organization. You know, we are building a large distribution business, and that evolves around people. People follow people. You know, if you build up a good, strong business, then those people will follow you. So I've always maintained that in these trainings that you always make notes, always write things down. Again, keep a hardback book. You know, that is your Bible. You make all your notes in that because they're permanent. And you can't remember it all. You can't retain it all. You have to listen and you have to write things down. Again, I always remember my mentor told me that you have to see yourself through the eyes of a trainer or through the eyes of a teacher, not as a pupil, because, you know, there's a saying that he or she that holds the marker makes the most money, and that's just so true. You know, if you want to become earn a good income out of the business, you know, you have to become a leader. You have to be a teacher, and a teacher creates other leaders. So, you know, a leader is somebody that not only knows the way, but they show the way as well, and just it's just so important. So we talked about the memory jogger. One of the books I mentioned was Endless Referrals by Bob Berg, and he states in that book that the average person knows at least 2,000 people. So this isn't just a half-hour exercise. You know, this is an ongoing exercise. Initially, you should sit down for 2-3 hours somewhere quiet and just start emptying your brain. All the people you do business with, all the people you pay checks to, or monthly bills. You know, you're their customer, but they should also be your customer. That's what we're looking for as customers. Members of your family, obviously, that's your very warm market. All relations, parents, in-laws, brothers, sisters, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews. Think about people that you see or talk to daily, on a daily basis. You know, your closest friends, people you work with, people that your partner works with, obviously all your neighbors, people from whom you've purchased things in the past, you know, your house, your insurance, if they're, you know, if they're a local insurance agent, salespeople, people where you shop, grocers, people where you bought your mobile phones from, all the shops in the high street. It's just endless. Lists of acquaintances already available. So look at, you know, you have a Christmas card list. Get that out. If you've got an address book still, get that out. I mean, the names there, you know, I've got an address book. We've been married for 30 years now, and I've got names and addresses that go back 30 years and beyond. What about your parents' address book? You know, it's not just who you know, it's who your parents know as well. Take a look at your mobile phone, all the numbers and names that you've got on your mobile phone. You know, maybe, you know, on one of these training sessions, we should actually design a text about this business that we can immediately send out to everybody that's on our mobile phone. What about all the people that you link with on Facebook and LinkedIn, as Trevor just went through? Then again, we can look at organizations. You know, if you're a member of a club or an organization, what about all the people in that? If you're a regular attendee of a church, you know, all the people that go to church or Sunday school. Or what about sports clubs, social clubs, charity clubs, health clubs? I mean, the list is endless. And what about people that you've associated with in the past? You know, go back to when you were at school. You know, who from your school days do you still, you know, keep in touch with, or that you bump into, you know, on a regular or every so often basis. So, you know, it's certainly something that you know, once you've got that few hundred names, then you know you should devote, you know, at least an hour every week, you know, a weekend, just when it's quiet, you know, just again look at adding to your list, because as I said before on Monday, you know, if you do not do this, then you will, I can state quite categorically, you will not be in this business in 12 months' time. That is how important it is. So now we've got our list, what do we do now? Well, we have to categorize that list. So once you have a list, you know, as complete as it can be, then just remember it will be constantly changing, you'll be adding to it, but you do need to categorize between customers and potential partners, as I call it. You know, if you were to set up your own limited business, who would you want as your fellow members of the board? That's the best way that I can put it. So you go through your list, check up those people that have at some time told you in the past that you know, you think that they might be interested in starting their own business. For example, they might have said to you in the past that they wanted a new job, or they wanted their own business, or they weren't happy with the job that they had, there wasn't enough money. You might know somebody that, you know, they live in a flat and they want to get their own house. You know, someone that's got a child, but you know, they want to be able to afford to send that child to university. Looking down that list, you know, people that, you know, they want to do a bit of traveling, take a year out and do some traveling. Again, you might know someone that they've just started a young family, and you know, the mother wants to be able to stay at home. I mean, that is massive. The amount of mothers that have got young children, they don't want to put them into daycare, and they want to be able to earn an income and work around that kids. I mean, that is half the people that you could bring into the business are young mothers. Just that is so big. Again, there's people out there that they want more time, or they might want to you know, have enough money to be able to volunteer and work with a charity. People that, you know, they just want more time freedom. You know, the list goes on, but what we call these is hot buttons. So these are hot buttons are something that turns people on. It's what their want is, and that's what we're wanting to establish is, you know, the people on your list, what are their hot buttons? You know, when you mention a hot button, you know, what their want is, their ears are going to prick up and they'll want to, you know, find out more. Okay, so that's your list. I'll be covering what we can say to them, you know, that initial contact. But there's one thing that I'm quite sure a few have heard of that is marvelous in starting a conversation with somebody just out of the blue, out of the cold. It can be with someone that you know, or it can be with a complete stranger. Say that you know, you're sat in an airport lounge waiting for a flight, and this works so well in being able to get the conversation flowing and to find out what that particular person's want is. And it's called FORM, F-O-R-M. So you may have had people on your list that you would like to work with, but you really don't know what they want or if they're dissatisfied. So this is a way of finding out what their dissatisfaction is or what their want is. And the key to this is being able to ask great questions. And from asking great questions, it's being a great listener as well. You know, this business isn't about telling people about your fantastic opportunity, because you know, that's what we call fire hosing, and it doesn't work. You know, when it just doesn't work. It's far better to ask great questions and to listen and find out what the hot button of that particular person is. So F stands for family. So ask if they're married, do they have children. You know, this is just in conversation. It can be, you know, sat in the doctor's surgery waiting for an appointment. Do they live close by? In the process of the conversation, you might find out that they live in an apartment or a flat, and that they lived in a house. They want to live in a house, or they may have so many children they wish to buy a bigger home, or they might just tell you that one of their children is almost ready to go off to university. So in response to that, you can say, well, that's expensive, isn't it? But I'm sure you're able to afford it, can't you? And then I'm quite sure they'll proceed to tell you that they're really not able to afford it, especially with the £9,000 a year fees now, or that they wish that they could afford that £9,000. So, you know, we try to give them leading questions that will make them tell you the thing that they would like to do if they had more money. So that's F for family. Or we move on to O now, which stands for occupation. And you talk to them about their job. And you always say to them, you know, when you ask them what do you do, it doesn't matter what they do, even if they work down a sewer. You can always say to them, I bet you love that. And it's amazing how often they will say to you that they actually hate their job. And in reverse to that, if you said to them, oh, I bet you hate that job, then I'm quite sure they'll tell you that they actually love it. So it just shows you how funny people can be. So always talk about them loving what they're doing, and let them give you a reason why they don't love it. Okay. The R stands for recreation. So ask them what they like doing in their spare time. You know, what do they do for fun? Maybe they'll say that, you know, they like to go fishing, or they like to go horse riding, or their daughter loves horse riding. So you can ask them, well, that's great. What sort of boat do you have? You know, whereabouts do you go fishing? Do you go sea fishing? Do you have a nice boat? You know, these are all leading questions. Or if their daughter likes horse riding, you say, oh, you know, do you own stables? Whereabouts are your stables? How many horses do you have? And they then might proceed to tell you that, you know, they haven't got a boat yet, they have to hire it, or they go to the local horse riding school, you know, and go horse riding that way. You know, so you're picking up hot buttons all the time. And finally, we move to the last part of form, which is M, and that stands for message. So if you're talking to someone you know, don't deliver the message about, you know, at the same time that you're collecting, you know, this information about what the hot button is. You know, my advice is that it's better to deliver that, you know, your message either later that day or the next morning. You know, you can call the person and say, hey Bob, you know, I've only got a moment, but you know, I was just thinking last night about our conversation that we had yesterday, and you told me that you wanted to send your son to university, or maybe, you know, he said that he hated his job, or that, you know, you told me that you wanted a bigger house, or that you wanted to, you know, you fancied a lovely Shakespeare fishing boat, you know, whatever it is. And at that point, you know, you ask them the question, and you say, Bob, you know, were you serious, or, you know, were you just kidding me? And what we do is we lock them in. That's the question that locks them in, because they're hardly going to turn around and say to you, no, I was telling you a load of lies. Of course they're going to say, well, yeah, I am serious about that. And then you can respond to that. You say, well, Bob, I think I've got a way that, you know, you can have it. I can't go into it right now. I'm in a rush, but I'll get back to you in the next 24 hours. Or you can say to them, you know, I can run it by you. Why don't we meet up for a cup of coffee tomorrow? You know, I'd love to run this idea past you. So the whole idea of this is that you're always collecting information. Always, you know, this takes practice. You know, always be aware all the time that, you know, when you bump into people, that you get them into conversation using form, and that it's to extract this hot button, this big want that that particular person wants. You can collect business cards, you can collect telephone numbers, you know, like I mentioned on Monday, you know, you want to get your own business cards done, because when you do bump into, you know, a stranger and you get into conversation with them with using form, like I said, if you're in an airport waiting lounge, you know, you can get a conversation, get their business card, and if they haven't, you can give them your business card, sorry, and if they haven't got a business card, you can get one of your business cards, give it to them, and just ask them to jot their details down, contact numbers and everything on the back of that card, so that you can get in touch with them at a later date. Okay, so, you know, FORM, form, it doesn't come automatically. You really do need to practice it and practice it on a daily basis. But, you know, it's easy to get into, because starting up a conversation using form, you know, you can just begin by just chatting to people about family, about occupation, about recreation, and you'll very quickly discover that people love talking about themselves. They love talking about their children. You know, get used to doing this first. Don't worry about the message. You know, that will come at a later date. Don't get stressed by this. Just get into the habit of practicing FOR, family, occupation, and recreation, on a daily basis. And every time you find that hot button, you know, log it down, you know, against that person's name, because it's so precious. You know, you will sell people into this business by selling them exactly what they want. You know, it's as simple as that. Another good question, and I heard this a couple of months ago, a great question to ask people to get their want is, especially on a Sunday or a Monday or a Tuesday, you ask them, or on a Thursday or Friday, you know, you've got 2 lottery days, Saturday and is it Wednesday as well? I think, because I don't play the lottery. But how about asking them on a Monday morning, you know, asking your friend at work, God, did you see the lottery on Saturday night? Cool. You know, what would you buy, you know, if you won that much money? You know, what would you spend it on? And they'll tell you, you know, blimey, well, I wouldn't, you know, I'd travel the world, or I'd take a year out, or I'd buy that fantastic Sunriser speedboat. You know, it's a marvelous way of extracting hot buttons, wants out of people. What a brilliant question. Okay, and another thing you need to design is what they call an elevator pitch. It's your story, you know, because in FORM you got O for occupation. So, you know, if you ask somebody what do they do for a job, the natural thing after they've told you is, guess what? They're going to ask you what you do, you know, for a living. So that I don't know. That's covering your list a bit. I hope there's some good pointers there. And then we've got to look at, you know, when you do telephone somebody, when you have made your list, what do you actually say to people when you contact them, you know? Because one thing I know coming into this business, it's very important that you, or that new person that you sponsor into the business, is that you have to get them lifting that 2-ton telephone very, very quickly. Almost immediately, within days, they have to pick up that phone and start talking to people on their list. You know, those people that they have categorized that they want as their fellow board members on their board of directors, or on your board of directors. And I've just put something that I use, but it's a 1-minute pitch, which any pitch on the telephone, your script should be short and sweet, and it should pique their interest. So basically, I'll read it out here now. It's hi Trevor, ring ring, sorry, ring ring. Trevor picks up. Hi Trev, this is Ted. How's everything going? Listen, I've only got a moment, but I thought of you yesterday and I wrote your name down to give you a quick call. Something really exciting was passed across my desk a couple of weeks ago that really grabbed my attention, and I immediately thought of you because it's proving to be very lucrative. Tell me, Trev, are you open to another income stream, or are you earning enough at the moment? Well, obviously the response to that is going to be yes. So, great. Well, listen, rather than go into detail with you now, I find it far easier to let you watch a short video that explains it all perfectly. It's far better than I can explain it. What's your best email address? So get us his email address, repeat it back to him, and or the other option to that is you might want to have a one-to-one meeting with that person instead of. So again, you can say, well, Trev, how about meeting up for a quick coffee or a quick drink and let me run it by you? I really would appreciate your feedback. Are you about on? And you can give them a choice of tomorrow or Wednesday. So you can arrange an appointment, a time and place to actually sit down with them. So, and you can finish there with it's what we call a relaxer phrase. So you can say, great, rather than go into detail with you now, I find it far easier to let you watch a short video that explains it all perfectly. Far better than I can. What's your best email address, Trev? And at the end of that, once you've taken that, you can say, listen, Trev, this might or might not be for you. Only you can answer that. But what I will say, though, is that if you can see what I can see, then you'll be just as excited as I am. And that's all it needs to be. It's just a 1-minute script on the phone, and then we let the tools do the work. You can either direct them to the videos on your, or you can divert people. You can divert people into these business overview webinars that we have. Or another tool is you can get them on a 3-way call with your sponsor or someone in your upline. And the final way to present this business will be with home presentations. And with that, I'd like to hand back to Trevor. I hope that was a bit informative for you, some good points.
Thank you, Ted. That was...
Back to you, Trev.
Yeah, thanks, Ted. That was incredible. Thank you very, very much.